With babies there, probably looks like you all like adopted a gnome or something like that.
Yeah, I heard gnomes are real.
I've heard that
Yeah.
as well. I've heard some compelling points at the very least.
Yeah.
Do not get him started, Kaitlyn.
I might be convinced.
Absolutely. Man, I'll tell you what, one time I was looking out the window. This was one of my most formative experiences in my life. And it was Christmas time. Do you remember the C9 lights, like the big warm, like looking ones that kind of blur, like the old-fashioned Home Alone style ones before LEDs? So anyway, as I was walking by the window, the three lights that intersected was blue, gnome's favorite color to wear, white light. A lot of gnomes are depicted as Caucasian. I didn't make up the lore. Excuse me. It's European, whatever. And then the red, which is their hat. And for 1 second, I thought there were gnomes on the world.
For 1 second.
I mean, maybe there were.
Could have been. It could have been. If I know anything about gnomes, which I actually know a lot, since, I've extensively read on gnomes and everything due to my formative childhood experiences, I know that that's just the kind of shenanigan they would try to pull.
Yeah, probably. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, absolutely. But we are not talking about gnomes
Gnomes.
today.
No.
Instead, a more seasonally appropriate topic, we are talking about hauntings. And that is why we are happy to welcome two recipients of possibly a real-life haunting onto the podcast today.
Yeah. So and this is gonna be like our big like Halloween episode. So it'll come out the week of Halloween and all that stuff. So you guys can listen to it, watch it, whatever. But I was like, I have like relatives through marriage who grew up in a haunted house, so it'd be perfect to ask them if they would want to talk about their experiences and share that. So today we're talking with my sisters-in-law, or is it sister-in-laws? Sisters-in-law, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Kaitlyn and Abby. So if you guys want to like give a short little introduction, you can, or we can just skip past that if you don't want to.
No, yeah, we can.
Okay.
I'm Kaitlyn.
Abby over here.
We moved to a farm in 2006 that had been in the family for probably over 100 years. And so our experience with the paranormal world started then. And we both lived in the house until we moved away from college. So for me, that was 11 years.
For me, like, whatever, 2006 to 2013.
8 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, we have lots of stories and we're excited to share them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a long tenure for a haunted house. I feel like I've always thought that if like one cup fell out of the cupboards, I'd probably move.
Just
So
leave. Yeah, that's been most people's reaction is the same way. Why didn't you guys leave was always, the first thing people asked. But
absolutely.
for us, it just was never like, there were a couple times, but for the most part, we never felt like an evil presence. It was always just kind of like things were moving around us, or
it always was just that, a cup falling out of the cabinet. It never was like, paranormal activity scene where we were getting
dragged down the hallway.
Yeah.
Scratched. So it always was like spooky, and like, when you shut the light off in the basement, you like book it up the stairs as fast as you can, because it always just feels like something was there with you. Like you never felt alone, even if like you were the only human in the house.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So then moving into it, you mentioned that it was like in a family for a long time. Was that like your family farm, or was it like owned by a different family and like you took over a piece of history?
No, so yeah, it's our dad's family. My grandpa's sister's husband built the house. His name is John. Um, and that was the house was built 80 years ago, but they had the property and like the outbuildings and the barns and stuff were built before that. And I think they've been there over 100 years. So the house for sure has been there for 80 years. And when we moved into it, it actually had sat vacant, I think, for 20 some years.
Oh my
Oh,
Um,
wow.
gosh. Wow.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't the original house on the property though. The original house has been torn down. Um, we aren't sure if that home has any ties into our family or not, but we are suspecting if maybe something involving or around that home might also be connected to the paranormal like activity that we notice around our property pretty much.
sure. So that was kind of the frame to ask if you ever, or if you, depending on what you believe was potentially like haunting the place, if it had potential to be somebody who was kind of in your lineage, and if that maybe contributed to the fact that it never seemed malevolent. And yeah,
Hmm.
so I guess did everybody have kind of that same experience of not being like overly scared or feeling like there was a malicious presence? Like you said, nothing was like grabbing you by the ankles and ripping you down the hallway.
No, no, but yes, I would say that really it was only Caitlin and I.
Hmm.
I can only speak for us, but remembering back, I don't think I ever really remembered hearing Adam or Caleb be like, "Oh yeah, this happened to me," or "Oh yeah, this happened to me." It was usually always Caitlin or I coming out and saying that we had saw something move, or we saw a shadow, or doors slamming, things like that.
Yeah. I think the only thing that Adam had happened to him was hearing the heavy footsteps one
Hmm.
time when you guys were home alone. I don't know who all was there, but you guys got really freaked out and called like a neighbor or called your parents or something. But that I think was the
Hmm.
only time that anything ever happened to him. But yeah, besides that, like all the stories that I've heard have been you guys, and then your mom had one encounter
Yeah,
in her
yeah,
bedroom, which is just so weird that it like whatever it is, it just like sticks to the women and like messes with
yeah.
you guys. So I do you
Yeah,
guys
and it was really interesting one time we met someone for the first time and she was outwardly a medium and talked about how she could see and talk to spirits and the first thing she said to us was, "You guys are sensitive."
Well, I mean, and I want to even tag onto that a little bit. She didn't tell Caitlin and I. She had pulled mom and
Oh,
dad aside to a private room and was like, I can tell, I can sense and feel that your daughters are sensitive.
Oh.
And at that time it was we were reading or no listening to what is that like a K2? I'm not sure if that's the right recording mm, like
device.
device
Yeah, I
name,
think it's a
but K2.
or K2 is what gauges like the energy, I think. We just
Oh
had
yeah,
like
we just had
recorders.
recordings that
Yeah.
we were listening to, and Caitlin and I were hearing things that nobody else hear. Obviously, but her, she could hear them. So that's kind of how she was noticing and sensing that we might be a little bit more sensitive to that.
Oh wow.
So, do you feel like, do you have memories of being sensitive to like paranormal entities predating moving to that house, or was it all kind of coming together that you moved to a spot that had activity? I would guess you were both probably around like grade to middle school, uh, sort of
I
Yeah,
age.
was
so yeah, I was 8 when we moved.
no, I was 10.
And previously before that, like the house that we lived in prior to that was a brand new build in the middle of a subdivision, like
Sure,
not, yeah.
sure, sure,
But
sure.
and you know what's funny too is that after moving into this house, I mean, we grew up very strict, very Christian. So things like that, this were very taboo. We didn't really talk about.
Mhm.
And so that wasn't really something that was ever put into our minds. We didn't watch scary movies growing up, that kind of thing. But moving into that house, definitely, like, we started noticing things. And then I just growing up in a really old town like Herman, I would go places like my friends' houses that would live in the old bed and breakfast, and I would see and feel things there too. And like staying in old hotels anywhere, I do feel energy seeing old houses and like windows. A lot of times I try not to look in windows because I just have this like feeling that I'm gonna see something in windows like of old houses.
Creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just like, I'd be like, I'm legally blind. Walk around with a walking stick.
So true.
I wanted to go back to one of the questions that was kind of related to like family or our house, or did we know moving there? And I would say we didn't really have an idea if it was connected to a home, if it was connected to a family member, if it was just like a random presence. We didn't really know that until we had all of these recordings
Mhm.
found, and
So-
the ghost hunters who came and did the
Investigation.
the hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't actually know. So what led up to the point of you guys having a couple of paranormal like investigators come? Like, did you guys talk with your parents? You're like, like this would be cool, or was it your mom's idea? Like,
it's
how'd
kind
it
of
start?
funny. They actually won a ghost hunt, like free ghost hunt by this paranormal group because they went to another ghost tour.
Mhm.
And we're like, I don't remember where the tour was,
Yeah.
but they put their name in a drawing and their name was drawn to have this free ghost hunt. And it was like
You know what?
perfect
Yeah.
because we were like, yes, we have a haunted house. Like, we promise you'll find
Yeah.
something.
I think actually
Yeah.
what happened was they were supposed to just go on another ghost hunt with this group. They were like, "Oh, come with us." But as they were on this tour, they were like bringing up things about the house that we lived in. And yeah, they were kind of becoming friends with the guy who was putting this on. And he was like, "Do you just want to do the ghost tour at your house?" And they were like, yeah. So yeah,
That's perfect.
that happened in 2014, right after Abby moved to college. It was just Caleb and I at home. But I remember like a lot of activity after Abby leaving specifically. Like a lot happened to just me in the room that we used to share before she moved out, which is why I think a lot of the experiences together because we shared a room. So
Yeah.
So do
we
you
just
feel
were
like,
together all the time.
yeah, was it maybe like a case of there was only like so much energy and effort to communication, it was kind of being divided between you two? And then do you feel like when you were kind of alone in that space that you were being sort of like specifically targeted, or do you think you were more observing just like happenstance effects?
So I'm actually going to kind of tag onto that a little bit. I think we're kind of getting into now like the specific entities, might we say, in the specific rooms that we found. So Kaitlyn and I used to share a room, and then when our older brother Adam went to college, I got the basement room, and my presence from our room left. And some of the recordings that we found that we found from the ghost hunt were from Kaitlyn's room. At that time, I wasn't. It was just her room. And we had left it in there all night recording. And some things that we heard was footsteps and then her bed creaking, as if almost like something
It was like
had
crawling
got into
into
bed
bed
with
with
her. Another thing that we had caught that night was 3 different male voices. We couldn't really make out what they were saying, but it was 3 distinct different males. So part of me believes that once I left and it was just Kaitlyn in the room, that's why she started like noticing more things, because like it was just her and nobody else in the room.
And okay, just to clarify, you're saying like once you left the room, like one of those presences that you had identified basically left, which you'd say at least is like some confirmation that the individual entities were at some level attached to you individually.
Hmm. Yeah. It's also interesting because so we both nannied. We were homeschooled, so we had almost like an in-home daycare. We had several, at one point would have upwards of 5 or 6 kids at one
Oh
time.
my
Oh,
gosh.
wow.
Yeah, and we would just do it together, and it was, yeah, but the kids usually, I mean, all the time, the kids were talking to something that wasn't there. We would be sitting there and the toys would move across the floor in front of us, nothing touching it. And yeah, like the baby would laugh at something that wasn't there. And so it kind of also, we felt like there was some type of childlike entity. Um, we just, and that's another reason why we kind of never felt like it was an evil, like we had to get out of there, was because it was like our toys were being played with, and kids were laughing and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And then when we listened back onto the recordings, my dad had kind of asked out loud in the basement, which um, we had redone our basement and the kids napped down there a lot, and a lot of activity with the kids. Like I have vivid memories of like walking up the stairs and one of the little boys I was babysitting just like baby talking, and I look down and he's just staring like straight at nothing, just baby talking and laughing. And
Oh.
I just got chills now thinking about it, because
Oh my
there was
gosh.
nothing there and he was just having a grand old time. But when we listened to the recordings, my dad was kind of asking out loud, asking about John, the guy who had built the house. John, is that you? Is that you here with us? And a little girl answered, no, it's me.
It's me.
It's
It's
me. She like
me
said it a couple
every
Oh.
times.
time.
It's me.
But anytime Dad said, John Seeked, is that you? On the recording, it's me.
Like this really soft little sweet voice. So
That's crazy.
that's,
I do
yeah.
I do want to like funny story here really quick. One of the first times I came over and like met you guys and hung out, one of you was babysitting and there was a little kid there and he had like this little like coin purse with him. And I was like, "Oh, what you got there, bud?" And he's like, "This." And he opened it up and pulled out tweezers and I was like, "What do you have those tweezers for?" And he's like, "For my daddy's back hair." But then,
Oh my
then
God,
we,
Haley, who was
I don't even
that?
know which one
it was
that
a little
was.
boy. I don't remember. It was so
We
long
had
ago.
multiple little
There's so
boys.
many.
I
I
know.
mean, that'd be hard,
But I
but that's
do
so funny.
I do want to say really quick. So your parents had a 3 bedroom, like 2-story house with the finished basement. And when
Mhm.
Adam was like in high school sometime, they built a bedroom for him down in the basement. And then like a couple times when I had stayed there, before we were married, we couldn't sleep in the same bed. So I slept in the
Mhm.
basement room. Creepy AF. And
Mhm.
also, I swear to God, I heard a little girl laugh at me in the closet downstairs one night. I even slept with
Yeah.
all the lights on. And I told myself it was because I was sleep deprived. But I grabbed my stuff and I was so scared that I knocked like a shelf off of the hallway outside of the outside of the door of your parents' bedroom. I didn't know it was there. Like I was like hovering down like with a pillow, like cuz
Oh.
I was like I'm sleeping in the living room. I heard a laugh and I don't know if it's cuz I'm tired or what, but I knocked it over and your dad's like, "What was that?" It comes out.
You're
I'm
just
pretty
terrified in this old
I
farmhouse.
know, and I'm pretty sure he's in his underwear. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I hope I didn't break anything." And it was a whole thing, but I definitely slept on the couch and I
Yeah.
did not sleep well that night because but then you guys also told me another time because when you babysit, you would have the kids sleep down there. Wasn't there something that happened in that bedroom down there with one of the
Mhm.
kids?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'll
can
share
you
this
guys tell
story.
that? Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. This is one of the scary ones. So we put all the kids down to bed in our finished basement. And we had at that time 3 little boys all around the age of 3. and then one little 6-month-old girl. And so we always put the little girl in the basement room, which was my room at the time, in a little pack and play, so she had a little bit more quiet privacy. And that day, we were laying them all down, and I think we had just put Josie in there, just had set her in the pack and play, and we're headed out to help with the boys. And my bedroom door like slammed. I mean, as if somebody took it and forced it with as much might as they could, slammed. And it sent us screaming and running upstairs. The boys just followed us. And I was like, Josie's in that room. Like, we have to go get Josie, the little girl. And so I ran back downstairs. I think Kaitlyn came back, with me. And we grabbed Josie. And I always like to have a glass of water next to my bed when I sleep. And my bed frame had kind of like a flat top where I could just set the cup of water. And I remember seeing the cup balancing, like defying physics.
Yeah.
Balancing on the edge, like as like the very edge of the cup was just sitting right here, just levitating on my bed with water in it.
Yeah, it was like full of water.
So we just grabbed Josie and honestly booked it out of the room and was kind of spooked out for the rest of the day. But that was the story about the room. And you know, when the ghost hunters were at the house doing their tour, one of the guys was like, you know, what I always try to do is like test science. Like, can I slam this door hard enough that it creates a wave through the wall that might like push the cup?
Yeah.
Or, you know, I don't know, science. So
yeah,
he stood there and he slammed the door several times. He tried to see, you know, was there any way that the cup could move from that door slamming? And he was like, no, there's no way to explain a cup levitating and moving from just a door slamming.
that is insane.
Yeah, that is scary. So again, you mentioned that it was mostly the women in your house who like had these experiences and stuff. How, I mean, really both your parents, how did they react when, because obviously I'm guessing you told them about this like after it happened. That would scare me out of my socks. So how did they react to hearing about the hauntings, especially the intense experiences?
We were kind of chatting about that because, to be honest, I think that they probably, maybe my mom especially, was probably noticing the bumps in the dark. But what, like, the last thing she would do is go to her 10 and 8-year-old daughter and be like, oh my God, I saw a shadow in the hallway.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah.
Fair.
So,
Yeah.
they really never said anything to us unless we came to them. And then, as
Then when we
Kaitlyn
got into
mentioned,
high school, like we kind of started just like really openly talking about it and getting interested in scary movies. And then we were going to The Conjuring with our mom. And then like that's when we really started to.
Well, and what I also wanted to say is, like Kaitlyn mentioned earlier, we grew up in a very like strict Christian home. So it was, you know, you are protected, you are safe, nothing evil can harm you. If you're scared, just say a prayer or sing a hymn. Those are just kind of the things that they would tell us to kind of help ease our mind a bit. I think it was a VeggieTale saying, God is bigger than the boogeyman or something
I
like
remember
that.
that song, yeah.
Yeah. Monsters on TV.
Yes. So that was something when we were younger for sure. But yeah, like Kaitlyn said, once we started getting older and like excited about that stuff, then it started coming out like, oh, mom and dad heard the footsteps that Adam heard, that Kaitlyn and I heard.
Yeah, they shared with us that, you know, there was many nights they would put us to bed and then stay up and watch a show together or, you know, have a little snack and drink wine together. And there were
Mhm.
many, many, many times that they could swear one of us was awake and running down the stairs, and then they would go to check, and all of us were tucked into bed sleeping.
Nobody on the
Yeah.
stairs.
They said that they would hear a lot of activity at night. Just kind of thinking like, is it that, you know?
Yeah,
But we were always
I
just
even
asleep.
remember one time I was so sick with strep throat, and we used to clean our church as a family,
Mm-hmm.
and we had to clean it, but I didn't feel good, so I just got dropped off at home. All the other fam went to the church to clean it, and I was just sitting on the couch. Don't know why I chose to sit in silence, but footsteps started, and that's all I could hear. It sounded so real to me as a 11, 12-year-old girl that I
Oh my God.
truly thought, like, I'm getting goosebumps
Yeah.
even talking about
She
it.
called
I
us.
truly
Yeah.
thought that somebody was in our house. That's how realistic the footsteps sounded coming down our stairs. I ran outside. I hid behind a shoebox, and I called Mom crying, please come get me. Somebody is in the house. I'm terrified. I can't go back in there.
Yeah.
It was so scary.
Mm-hmm.
Other times, early in the morning, Kaitlyn and I one time were playing in our room, and it sounded like somebody was running up the
Oh my
stairs,
gosh.
boom, 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 up the stairs, terrified. We ran and hid in our closet for about 30 minutes until we heard Mom come home. We were like, Mom, hello, was
Yeah.
that you?
And then
So
you were like,
this Foots on the Stairs was a big,
That was one of the most popular.
yeah.
oh my God,
Walking
that's
up and
a
down.
no for me, dog.
Yeah.
I will say. So this is interesting on a couple different steps. One, I've never really heard people quantify the family experiential dynamic of what you said. I never thought about. The parents aren't going to tell the kids, "Hey,
Yeah.
just so you know, this house is really haunted.
Yeah.
There's someone
Right.
stomping up the
Yeah.
stairs." I mean, you can't. So all of you are kind of experiencing this in different camps. So it is cool then when you get older and you can kind of figure out the truth of the hauntings of the childhood home. But that's really cool. I feel like that's a theme that needs to be more I don't know, explicitly explored in a horror movie or something.
Yeah, I mean, there's always the horror movie dad who's like, you weren't stabbed in the neck. That was a Lego
Yeah.
or something.
Right.
That was just the wind,
Okay. So I've got to ask, were there any haunting legends or rumors or anything associated with the property now that you're older and you've kind of talked about it with the parents? Because I feel like one of the tropes is when you're 22, they say, well, old man Jenkins was murdered in that house. So that makes sense.
Yeah, honestly, the only thing that we know is that the guy who built the house, John, he did die in the house, but I think it was just of old age. I'm not really sure about his wife. I think her name was Maria. Is that what they said? Mary or Maria? I'm not really sure about her, but there wasn't really, but something, I don't even know if this is related at all, but this kind of just connected in my brain a little bit. But when we moved into the house, it had been vacant for 20 years and it was overrun with spiders. So did the negative energy in the house, maybe, so that was just we always dealt with these deadly brown recluse spiders that just infested our house. That was another thing we always had to deal with.
Yeah.
No legends or anything like that, kind of like Kaitlyn said, but after the ghost hunters came and tried to figure out, because if we rewind to what we've all chatted about, we heard a little girl chatting, it's me. We heard 3 different men in Kaitlyn's room having some kind of conversation. So those guys were kind of trying to figure out, why are we hearing so many different entities in this home, especially on an age scale.
Sure.
And they're wondering, I guess, and also pause, that it also kind of in how sporadic the happenings were. It wasn't an everyday occurrence. Sometimes we could go a month without having anything happen. So they're suspecting that we might have some kind of like paranormal portal in our home where spirits come and go kind of through this portal. Don't really know much after that. Didn't really look much into it. Just kind of always had that on my mind. Like, oh, maybe we're not experiencing anything right now because portal's not releasing anything into the home or something like that.
We also would notice a lot of activity after, you know, we would have a family fight or there was some type of negative energy. We did notice that we would have more activity. Yeah.
Okay, I do want to ask you guys, so what was like the earliest memory that you have? So you guys moved there when you're what, 11-ish?
And 8.
8 and 11?
I was 10. Kaitlyn was 8.
8 and 10. Okay. So
I think for me, there was one day, it was probably maybe the year after we moved there, so it was probably 9. I was reading a book up in my room, of course, and so at the back of my bed, I was leaning against it reading, and the door to the hallway was just like straight to the side of me. And I remember like right next to me, I saw a white figure go from my brother's room, turn, and then go down the stairs. Like I saw it in my peripheral, and like full body chills, kind of felt like the air was sucked out of the room. Like I just felt that energy there, and I was too scared to go and look or anything. But that for me was my earliest memory, was seeing like a full white, like just a sheer figure go down the stairs.
And that's kind of crazy because my first experience was also with a white sheer figure. However, it was in a different part of the house, still in our bedroom, still in the upstairs portion of the house, but Bailey knows what I'm talking about. But we have these like attics that run right along the roof, kind of where the slope is, and they connect the 2 upstairs bedrooms. We had that. Gosh, that was honestly our flex room. It was like a craft room, my homeschool room at one point. It was a toy room. Like we did a lot with that. But this specific instance was probably around the same time frame as when Kaitlyn was just mentioning. But I was reading my homeschool book in my like side of that closet with the door to the bedroom in my peripherals. And there's like this little dormer window that has the entrances to these closets. So from the window into the room, I noticed this white flowing figure, and I like looked over, and same as Kaitlyn, just kind of like, what did I just see? Like, I know I just saw something. I'm not crazy. Not gonna go check it out though. Like, I'm gonna sit right here and just keep reading my science book. And some people were like, what do you have, curtains? And we didn't. We had no flowy curtains. We had those like old draw curtains where you like fold it down and you had to like flap it up, you know, it rolled. So there was no kind of like flowy curtain to blow. And I didn't even know that was your first experience.
You were just saying that, and I was like, I don't know if I even heard that.
That's crazy. And I know Caleb and Adam used to dress up as Lord of the Rings and go out and play in the woods. So it wasn't Adam in like a Gandalf suit, was it?
No, Adam's Gandalf cape was red and orange, and Caleb's
so not
yellow,
white at all.
No.
Okay.
Got this committed to memory. But as I'll tie back to, I don't know what to call it other than, you know, like the portal theory. It's interesting then that there was like a transient nature to the different observable effects of the hauntings that you both kind of saw independently. Were seeing the same thing. So I always think it's a lot tidier when it lines up like that.
Yeah. And, you know, we have a couple other stories where it lines up too, but I think you guys have a couple questions, so I don't want to like give it away too soon.
I know we've got so many stories.
No, you're good. Yeah, let's get through the questions, and then you guys can just like, you know, share the creepiness.
Take it from there.
Sure.
Cool.
So, have your beliefs about the paranormal like changed over the years, would you say? Like, were you like non-believers of the paranormal and then this stuff happened and then you're like, yeah, this is totally real? Or is it the opposite now?
I would say honestly, like I started off ghosts aren't real. Like, nah, there's no way. Like, make that make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm like, wait a minute, you don't believe that there's ghosts out there? Like, come on. So I definitely had a complete, like,
Attitude change about it. For
belief
me,
about it because I've seen it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's the first thing I always say to non-believers is if you saw a toy move across the floor up the slope of your basement with nothing pulling it, like what thought goes through your mind? Like, oh, that's normal. Oh,
how do you explain it?
you know, like do your own thing, toy, have fun, play with yourself.
Yeah.
Like, how do you explain that? So I would say definitely like living it, experiencing it, seeing it, honestly feeling it, like just feeling that presence is absolutely what's changed my mind on that.
For me, I think I was a little bit too young. Like I always liked like Scooby-Doo and stuff like that. So for me, I don't know, ghosts was never something that I really had to like differentiate between like real or
Like
make believe. Yeah. So when I just started experiencing it, it was just like, oh, this is it, you know? And then we started watching things like Ghost Adventures. And then for me, scary movies were really interesting, especially ones like The Conjuring, because that was real to me. Like I lived those things that they were living. So scary movies got really scary for me because I was like, yeah, no, that's real. That's not made up.
Yeah.
And so just when people are like, oh, I don't believe in ghosts, I'm like, oh, just wait till you hear the stories I have for you.
Yeah, that kind of touches on one of the other questions I'd written down, which was like anytime you talk about anything in the paranormal space or the, outside the scope of regular science, you always have people who are just dead set on wanting to push back. Like you said, if you see a ball rolling up the slope and there's no external input or whatever, why do people find it easier to say I believe nothing about that rather than saying I believe there's something that I can't explain? But do you feel like you're people who take up the charge to try to like convince people, since you are pretty like attuned to it? I think the word they use is sensitive, or do you just say, yeah, whatever, kid?
Yeah, I think for me it just depends on the person. If it's a curious, playful curiosity, then I kind of dabble into it. I growing up in a very strict Christian household, like we also just kind of had to keep it to ourselves because people did like, they would tell us that
The devil was in
yes,
our
it was
home.
evil. It was demons.
That's what they say. It's
or
demons.
the
Yeah.
devil.
Yeah, they say it's demons. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
And
just
then
one
it goes
thing.
from
Like
you're hearing a little girl to then having people tell you, bro, no, that's demons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and my response always was, if it was a demon, why was it trying to play with me? But
Yeah.
just like play toys with me. But
Oh.
I don't know. Maybe that. And then some people are like, well, was it just trying to distract you so it could, like a devious?
I'd say I
Oh, yeah.
definitely don't push it on anyone, especially just because of like I was that person. I was the one who was like, no, they're make believe. Like it's Hollywood. That ghosts aren't real. So like if they're meant to know that there's supernatural beings in this world, like that, it's gonna happen to them exactly as it happened to me. Like it's gonna, everybody just has to learn by experience. So me sitting there being like, they are real, is like, it's not gonna do anything. So go out there, go enjoy the world, and I hope a ghost trips you at some point in your life so you can be humbled a bit.
Sure.
No, it is. I will say though that a lot of like growing up in the haunted house and living that and being able to talk about it has opened up a lot of conversations, and I've learned like a lot of other experiences that, you know, other people have gone through. And so I really, if anything, my belief is only getting stronger that there is some type of spiritual beings out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Yeah.
hard sharing our experiences though, because like that's still our parents' home.
Sure.
At one point, Bailey was absolutely terrified to come over to our house
Yeah.
because we were just like blah 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 blah. Oh,
I
yeah,
know,
Well-
we did.
well, No, but after hearing that, I swear to God, I heard a little girl laugh in that room in the basement. I was terrified to sleep there. And then it was like, oh, Adam
Yeah.
and I are married. We can finally sleep in the same room, and I won't have to
Same
sleep by myself in
room,
this
I know.
creepy ass haunted house, you know?
yeah. It's
So, like, yeah, no, I feel like, though, so I talked to your mom a little bit about, because I had reached out to her and I said, hey, I was thinking about asking Kaitlyn and Abby about doing, you know, this. And I told her the idea of interviewing you guys. And she was like, oh yeah, they should totally be interested, whatever, like just text them. And I asked her if she still had like any recordings or anything from when they did the ghost hunt or like the ghost investigation at your house. But it was on an old computer or something, and so it was whatever. But I was like, you guys, have you had like anything weird happen since then? I mean, like the kids are all moved out, like you guys are all grown up, and it's just your parents in the house now with their animals. And she said that there hasn't been like a whole lot of activity. She said Caleb was there once and they were talking about how there hasn't been any activity for at least a couple years now. And they were standing in the kitchen. I don't know if she told you guys about this. So like in your kitchen, there's like a little hallway that goes to like the basement to the left, the linen closet, and then your bathroom, right? Well, the basement door was open, and your mom said that there are hooks up on the wall somewhere where you guys hang up hats and stuff. And so as your mom and brother were talking about this, a hat lifted up off of the hook and fell onto the floor.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I was like, what? And I was like, okay, did you have like 5 hats on one hook, Rebecca? Where one was just like barely hanging on?
Barely
Or
hanging
was
on.
or was it like one hat looped through the little hole in the back on one hook? She's like, no, it was on one hook. Like it was one hat on a single hook. The only way you could take it off is if you lift it up and drop it. So that was weird. But I know like some of the activity kind of stopped after a barn burned down on your property. It was kind of a theory that I had of like, if you guys haven't had a whole lot of stuff happen, like maybe there was something attached to the barn or like something in the barn that it was attached to. And then after that happened, maybe that was the portal or,
True.
you know, whatever.
It very well could have been.
Well, back up. Can you explain a little bit about this barn burning down situation?
It's
And
such
was
a
there
tragic
weird stuff
story, honestly.
associated with
Do you guys
We
want to
had
tell
just-
it?
Yeah.
So it was, gosh, what year was that? 16?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
I think maybe because Adam and I had just gotten married, so it was either the first or second year we were married, and your parents did a Christmas trip instead of a big Christmas gift for us. Yeah.
We always go on or it's been a tradition that we go on a family vacation over the New Year. And we had just gotten back from Florida where we drove and all crammed in a 8-passenger Yukon XL, like shoulder to shoulder. We're adults in here, so we're just setting the scene here, okay? And it's late at night, and we're getting back home to Missouri. It's like January 3rd, So freezing
Yeah.
outside, like
Mhm.
dead of winter. And we had pigs at the time, and our female pig accidentally got, or I guess I should say, our male pig accidentally got in the pen with our female pig at the wrong time of the year. So our pig had just had baby piglets, and it's like dead of winter. So we don't have the proper setup, like it's not warm enough, and we have lost 10 of the 12 piglets our pig had just due to it, like the freezing conditions. So when we got home, Mom and Adam very sleepily went out to the barn and tried setting up some heat lamps for them to make them like hopefully last the night to be a little bit warm. But the heat lamp shade was too small for the bulb we had. So really they shouldn't have left it. They shouldn't have plugged it. We think what happened was the mama pig stood up and her back touched the hot light bulb since it wasn't properly protected by the light fixture. And it knocked it over into the dry straw that we had the piglets in. And this was a 100-year-old barn, so it was just like, just picture an old barn that was partly falling down. It's just old, rotten, dry wood.
Sure.
So it just lit on fire. Mom woke up to the propane tanks we had stored in there exploding. And that's when she saw the hill was on fire. My dad watched the loft of the barn collapse down into the barn while Mom was on the phone with the firemen, and she pretty much was saying, like, this is like, we don't need you to come and save our barn. We need you to just come put this fire out. Like, it's gone. It's just a massive fire at this point.
Yeah. Wait.
So that's the tragic story
the
about
pigs
the 100-year-old barn.
in there.
So the mama pig got out. Every animal was able to get out of the barn except for the 2 newborn pigs. So we did end up losing all of the baby pigs, but we were just very glad that all of our other animals were able to escape safely.
That's not what I was expecting out of this. Like that's.
Yeah,
honestly. Yeah. So I mean, I never thought of that, Bailey, but that's a really good point with like that energy. Maybe the portal was the barn.
Yeah.
And that's why it kind of slowed down.
The other thing too, though, is that I mean, it did kind of stop too when Abby and I left. A lot of it still happened to me after she left, but then when I left, if we were the sensitive ones and we, the stuff was happening to us, maybe.
But, well, and I also wonder, and one thing that we've always noticed about our hauntings is the energy. When the energy is high, then we notice it more. So with them not noticing anything, and then all of a sudden Caleb and Mom talking about it, they're now giving it that energy. So now it can be like, hey guys, still here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of like how I like to view it. So the less energy it gets, the less negative energy we have there. But that's true. That honestly, a lot of it stopped once we left.
I think it
Even
definitely
say that too.
Can be the case, maybe that you two could be, the conduits to a lot of that. But a lot of like some of the commonalities with the haunting cases like this is that the energy, builds up like static and then has a spark and then takes a few days or whatever, builds up and then has a spark. But also the fact that it might demand an audience, and if there aren't people who are sensitive to it around, maybe not. And the reason I want to say that particularly in this case is that you've had like recordings of like the little girl entity saying, no, it's me, like that there is something kind of you're observing and it's
like a
observing
reaction.
you back. Exactly. And if it takes a certain energy threshold to get that through, and there's nobody to be receptive of that, then I guess almost at the supernatural level, why waste the effort?
Well, that's interesting you say that, because I would say like the majority of the hauntings in that house that I experienced, or like the sightings that I experienced in that house, was when I was nannying.
Mm.
I mean, like the same little boy that Kaitlyn saw jibber jabbering, he was nonverbal. He took a while to talk. I mean, he was probably 2.5, and he still really wasn't saying anything. He just was very quiet. I think because he had a very talkative older brother. So his older brother just did all the talking, and he just
Sure.
was kind of the quiet, shy one. But this one time, I remember hearing something in the basement when when they were sleeping. They were sleeping, and I peeked down the door, and he's standing on the stairs, jibber jabbering, like just saying the most amount of baby words to like the angle of the, which is weird that he was looking up, but it was like to the angle of the ceiling where like the ceiling and the wall met. And I mean, probably for 2-3 minutes, he was laughing, he was jibber jabbering, he was talking, and then he stopped and looked at me. I did not make a
Ew, stop.
sound.
Yeah.
I just got
didn't do
goosebumps. I just got
anything.
goosebumps.
I did
So,
too, yeah.
Like,
so that's
like that.
interesting. Like, I think you're right. Like, that little kid had a lot of energy because that little boy could see her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was chatting with her. And
Yeah.
so she was the one who moved the toy. She was chit-chatting with the boy. She probably was the one who slammed the door.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she was annoyed about the little girl being in there, so she slammed the door. Our mom had made comments about being poked in the night, feeling like a little kid, like trying to get their mom's attention. That lines up with like it being a little kid. So
Okay.
it makes a lot of sense that, you know, that there was a lot of energy being given to that. Like this little girl had a lot to show also.
Mm-hmm.
If it even was
Yeah.
a little girl, maybe it was a little boy. This little kid.
Yeah,
let's say.
Yeah.
This little kid.
Just a little kid. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you're talking about this little boy talking to the ceiling corner, essentially, I don't know why it's way like it's not creepy when you call it another little kid, like a little ghost kid that he's talking to, but it is super creepy if you think of him talking to like the Babadook or like the clown from It. You know what I mean? Like, cause that's like because like in The Conjuring or whatever, like the kid's talking to the ghost, and then they're like, "She's watching you," and then the kid turns around and sees their sibling or something to be like, "Oh, they can't know you can see me," type thing. You know what I mean? Like, oh
Yeah.
my god,
Ugh.
that's so
And
creepy.
if it's a kid, like why is it at the ceiling? So then it makes you
Right.
think, was it a kid?
Mhm.
Right.
But you know, I have never really picked it apart this much. You know, I've always been like told my college friends, and I try to remember as much of the information as I can when I'm telling them this, but it is really interesting that a lot of the toys and the talking and the laughing was down in the basement, and specifically where the child said, "It's me," that was recorded in the basement. But for me upstairs, it was the dark male voices. And like a lot of nights would wake up, like my eyes would open and I would see something dark over my bed, like a man standing next to my bed. Oh gosh, I get goosebumps thinking about it.
Oh my
And
god.
like I sent Bailey a recording that I got on my phone. I started setting up a sleep talk recording app because I wanted to start seeing if I could catch some of these recordings on my own. And this one specifically, and every morning I would just like play it on my phone next to my ear. And this one, it was middle of the night, I think like 2 or 3 in the morning. All of a sudden, like you can kind of hear some rustling around, and then you can vividly like hear a voice saying good morning, like almost whispering it to me, like
Yeah.
good morning.
I'll go ahead and play it.
Oh, we've got
So-
it. Okay.
Yeah, she sent it
Awesome.
to me. So if you're listening right now, just make sure to turn up your earbuds or your headphones because it is pretty quiet. It's only
Mhm.
about 4 seconds long. So I am just playing it now. I'll play it one more time.
Oh man, so 99% of the time people are like, it just plays raw static, and they're like, did you see? They said Bill. That's my great grandfather's name. This
It said
sounds like,
Bill.
yeah, no, like this is like audible.
Yeah.
And after I heard that, like, I just full body chills. Like, I knew I mean, it didn't sound like my mom. It didn't sound like my dad. I ran down to my parents. I showed them right away. And I was like, were you guys awake in the middle of the night at 2 or 3, potentially whispering to each other? And they were like, no, we were dead asleep. Like,
And then even like when you wake up at 2 in the morning, you're not like, good
good
morning.
morning.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, why is it talking
Right.
like that?
I know.
It's got a little bit
Yeah.
of like flair in there.
Yeah.
The other thing is a phone mic isn't going to pick up a whisper from another room, even if you can kind of audibly
It's
That's
so
a good
true.
point.
hear it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, you'd have to have like been like chain smoking, going to a concert for like 2 days in a row if you were gonna like make your voice sound
To
like
make
that.
my voice
So,
sound like that. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah, that's definitely
jeez.
creepy. Before we go into a couple of other things, do either one of you guys think, or did you guys have anything happen after you left the house and went to college? Like, did anything seem to follow you, or did anything weird happen after that?
I remember, I can't quite remember specifics, but I do remember that when I moved away to college, I feel like there was maybe creepy things happening in my door. And at that time, like the summer right before I went to school, I was working at the swimming pool in my hometown. And some of the older girls were really interested in like the paranormal and like Ouija boards and things like that. And so one slow rainy day at the pool, they decided to make a Ouija board out of cardboard and like homemade, like
Oh my
scary
God.
stuff. And where I was interested because like I was already very much into the paranormal world, I didn't touch the Ouija board at all. It still just kind of scared me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd always just heard bad things that came from Ouija boards. So I was like, no, I'll watch.
Well, your parents were
Um,
religious too, so it was like a big
Mhm.
no-no, you know?
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm sure it was
Ouija
like,
board.
oh,
Yeah.
they're not here, so
right, yeah. So, sure enough, homemade and everything, that little soda can lid moved across that cutout cardboard piece of paper with like permanent marker on it. And so then they were like, we should go to the cemetery.
oh no.
Cemetery with this homemade Ouija board. Still, I didn't touch it. And so when I was like doing all of that with those people, Mom was like, Abby, like stop dabbling. Like you're not touching, but you're still dabbling. You're still showing up. Like, what if you brought something home with you, like from the cemetery, something creepy?
Mhm.
And when I left for college, it kind of slowed down at home. But then it was like the creepy things were happening to me, like doors shutting. It probably was like things falling off, like my bed or my dresser. Not anything that I really ever committed to memory, and quite truthfully, because I was by myself, I probably didn't even want to think about the fact that a ghost had followed me from home, and now I have to deal with this by myself.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I would also say that I had happenings happen at home even after moving out. So,
Mhm.
like if I was there visiting, I would have something happen. Or if I was just like staying there for the summer, I'm not sure if you count that as like still living at the home or not. But when I was there for 3 months, things would happen from time to time. But I can't say that too many like actual supernatural things to the extent that I was experiencing in the house in Missouri happens to me now. I would say more now. I just get that feeling like I'm not alone.
Mm-hmm. Like I'm being watched right now.
I can feel that energy.
Yeah.
Like I feel you. I know you're here. I respect you. That kind of thing. But I'm not gonna like give attention to you because I don't want you.
Right.
I don't want
Yeah.
you. Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I like growing up, my best friend, her mom managed one of the biggest bed and breakfasts downtown Herman. And it's known for being like very haunted. Like multiple ghost hunters have been there and have done investigations there. And I had stuff happen to me there. Like I constantly felt like things touching me, that nothing was there. There was one specific room that was said that there was like a male entity, and I felt him every single time I was there. Like it was a dark presence. Just kind of always feeling like someone was watching you. And yeah, after Mick and I got married, we moved into a townhouse. And I kind of always felt like I heard stuff that like Mick yelling for me and he wasn't. I also never really felt comfortable there alone. But there was one night, it was a couple times like when people would stay with us. Like one of our friends, her name is one of my friends, her name is Jessica. She lives in Kansas City. When she was staying, I can't remember exactly what happened, but she said she either heard someone or something, and it was on like the upper level in the guest room. And then on another occasion, maybe it was her with the doorknob, but someone heard the doorknob like shaking super loud, shaking super loud. And like in the middle of the night, they woke up to the doorknob shaking. And then on another instance, the door, they couldn't get the door open. It was like someone was holding on to the one side and like wouldn't let the door open. And so, yeah, like a couple of my friends were scared to stay with me there. But it wasn't consistent. And I will say, after Mick and I got married, I found out that he sleep talks a lot. So I started like doing my sleep recorder thing, and I also heard, and I have a recording. I need to like go through and look at it, but I have a recording of our door handle shaking in the middle of the night too.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Well,
other than that, though, I think that might.
And I guess I remember there was times where I would hear like the closet door upstairs shut, and I'm like, Kaitlyn, who's
Yes,
upstairs?
and
like,
Rennick would sleep in that room, and there was times I would hear bang, like boom, and I would go up there, and he would just be like in his pack and play, and I'm like, what was that? Yeah. So yes, okay. Now that I'm recalling, yes, I guess honestly, maybe there was.
well, and I think when I lived out here in the first apartment out here in Colorado, do you remember, Bailey? I was sending you guys Snapchats that my twinkle fairy lights in my bathroom were randomly turning on, and like
The batteries were out of
I do
it.
vaguely remember that.
Yeah,
Rennick was terrified of that bathroom and always said that there was an old lady or what would he say?
I try not to
He
remember.
he like wouldn't go into the bathroom by himself, and there was something that he would talk about, someone who didn't like when he and mommy would fight or something like that. It was really weird.
You're right. He would talk about something like that, and
yeah.
And then I would like the lights would turn on in front of me, and this was like not a switch that could like easily be triggered, or like like it would not accidentally turned on. So for the lights to just turn on in front of me, that was pretty
crazy.
At what age was he making these observations?
And this was
My son,
2 years ago. He was 3 to 4.
3 and 4.
Okay, so that's typically you'd say like earlier than a kid would make up like a, what would you say, like a nuanced narrative about something like that. Like, I don't want to go into a room
And this
because the old lady
Rennick
doesn't
also
like it.
was. Yeah, he was scared of like ET when he watched it. So he did not watch like scary ghosty stuff. Like
Sure.
he didn't really like that stuff. So this wasn't. Yeah, it was weird that he would he would cry about it. Like it really was scary to him, that bathroom.
Wow.
But,
Was that the one that was like in the hallway between your bedrooms?
Yeah.
I think I remember your mom saying something that you had struggled like toilet training with him because he didn't like that bathroom or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or am I just not remembering that correctly? Like,
No, yeah, it was a little bit of an issue, but
I mean, you got it figured
I
out.
just
But I didn't.
I eventually just let him go to my bathroom because I stopped fighting him
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
he did not
He
want
didn't
to go
like
into
that
his
bathroom, and it was supposed to be like his bathroom because it was right across from his room. But yeah,
Yeah.
Wow.
Which when I moved, that stopped.
Yeah.
He doesn't hate his bathroom now.
That's crazy.
No, that is
I
crazy.
mean,
you're like, oh, you're both saying, oh, there's been a couple things like, like 50 it doesn't sound
Yeah.
like I guess
I
maybe
also
the
I don't know.
intensity
I would
fluctuates,
go
but
seek it out. Truly, I want to find the old haunted hotels to see, if I could get something to go bump in the night. But
yeah. But
Well,
these
there
don't.
was
No,
okay.
I was just gonna say these don't sound like it was something that followed you. Like they don't sound connected.
Yeah.
If you guys
Yeah.
are like more sensitive to the paranormal, then you're gonna have things happen to you, at, a lot of different places, not
Yeah.
just yeah. So
Not
yeah.
just at that house. Yeah.
Right.
absolutely. Yeah, it is wild. I mean, I guess I'm like really open and receptive to the idea. I always say it's like one of my bucket list items to like have a firsthand like haunting experience. And I think I might just have been born maybe without the tension or
The
element,
gift.
whatever it is, to be able to do that. But I'm like so open to it. Like like I grew up, at least when I was a little kid, in a house very similar, like you're saying, where my older sisters and my mom had some experiences that they didn't, particularly enjoy. But it was a murder house. Like right before we moved in there, an old woman was just brutally murdered with a claw hammer, and
I shouldn't laugh, but it's like,
You
are you
should-
serious? And now a family lives there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, the
that is
reason we bought
wild.
the house was because it was a really cheap house in a nice neighborhood, and my parents were like, "What's the issue?" And they're like, "Well, someone was murdered here 8 months ago." Um, and they said that didn't bother.
Great, let's move
Move
in.
in.
Well, they were also very, very religious, and they're like, oh, lightning doesn't strike twice. We're protected by Jesus anyway. Like it's all good, good,
Yeah.
whatever. But I think like ever since then, kind of very much similar to what you're saying. Like my parents obviously didn't tell us that when we were like little kids. My older brother did eventually, because they wanted to scare us. Out of going in their room or whatever it was. But like ever since then, I've just been thinking, man, I want to have an encounter with a ghost. And maybe it's a case of I'm just not cool enough and they're dodging me because they know I want to communicate with them. I don't know what it is.
No, you just need to be with someone that can help you communicate.
It could
Yeah.
be. I mean, honestly, if it was like a real person hiding in our house, I don't think my wife would even notice that. So like,
That would be more terrifying.
yeah.
I
But
think.
like, I don't think either of us are connecting with the supernatural, unfortunately. But we
Yeah.
are still going. Bailey and I, at least, we go to the haunted ghost tours and everything like
Tours,
that.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
we've got to get like this extended posse together though, because I feel like having some like confirmed sensitive to the supernatural people along with it, at least to lead us in the direction of, I ain't vibing it in this room, let's set up the sound recorders somewhere
Yeah.
else and kind of steer it a little bit better. I think it could really
No, I
improve
have an
my
idea.
chances.
Let's do a ghost adventure lock-in at the Gauss house in Herman.
Oh my
You have to stay the
gosh,
whole
that would be
night.
wild. That would be crazy.
This is how all those found footage quadruple murder movies start, but okay. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
we're probably
Blair
not going to
Witch
get
Project.
murdered at your parents' house. I would hope
No.
not, but
That's hilarious. Okay, I think I just have one more thing and then we'll go into you guys sharing stories. So I was trying to figure out or make sense of something that I had like in my head, and I couldn't find anything. And then I finally came across this article that talked about poltergeist. So it's weird that most of the paranormal activity centered around the females in your family. Some people say that poltergeist activity is often linked to female adolescents who are experiencing emotional turmoil. But not all poltergeist activity is centered on teenagers. And you guys said like around the age that you were, like between 8 and 10, 11, of when everything started happening. So I don't know if you've ever considered that it could have been a poltergeist. I know that you guys have caught the recordings of a little kid saying it's me, but like all of the other things, like I remember in previous conversations with you guys saying that like when stuff would get heated, like there would be big arguments, the activity would like really increase. If it genuinely were a poltergeist, it would feed off of that, and it would like make something crazy happen, like a door slamming or something like that. So I don't know, like not to freak you guys out, obviously, but just like trying to like kind of brainstorm and think about like what it could be, you know, not
What
saying
is, what is a poltergeist? I've heard that term, and I think I've seen the movie a million years ago,
Oh,
but
sure. Also, like
yeah.
I always thought it was like a gradient on like poltergeist is like the ghost elements plus interacting like with the physical dimension. So like at the point that it starts like changing TV channels or knocking cups
yeah.
off of stuff.
Mhm.
That's probably worth a Google though.
So, a poltergeist is a ghost or other supernatural being supposedly responsible for physical disturbances such as loud noises and objects thrown around. At least in German
So pretty much
folklore.
what Ethan said, like the ghost, but in like to the point where he can slam the door or
Right. But I didn't realize this, according to Wikipedia, which who knows if this is real or not, but most claims of fictional descriptions of poltergeists show them as being capable of pinching, biting, hitting, and tripping people. You guys never really had anything physical
You mentioned
happen,
your
right?
mom though, like feeling like a tap, like a child trying to get her attention, right?
Yeah, so I have a story, and it kind of also ties into the happening multiple times and now even like physical touch. But you bringing up like adolescent teen girls who are going through emotional turmoil, one of the scariest nights that I experienced was with my best friend at the time, in high school. She was spending the night with me, and we were in the basement. We had watched a scary movie that night and had fallen asleep to the movie. So we were just on the futon sleeping, and the basement's dark other than the TV. Well, all of a sudden, the TV goes to the crackle screen with the static sound, super loud, and the disc ejects at us. Like the Xbox literally shoots the disc back out at us, and we woke up to this, and we end up running up the stairs because we got so scared. And BJ, our dog, was on the other side of the door growling at us, which was totally off character for him, because he was very friendly dog, like wasn't ever scared of us, but he was scared of whatever was happening. And so we end up going to like running upstairs, and I can't remember. I think we went into my mom's room and woke her up. And then the next day, my friend shared with me that before I woke up, she had woken up before me and felt like something was sitting on her chest. And she's like a dark presence, and she felt really scared. She couldn't say anything, and she like felt like she couldn't breathe because it was almost like it was like sitting on her. And so she felt that, and she told me this completely unprompted. And I, in high school, tried really hard not to tell my friends about the stuff that I would go through because I didn't want to scare them into not staying. And so the fact that she was bringing this up to me, totally unprompted, was like, oh, dang. And then I don't know how recent it was after the fact, but the exact same thing happened to my mom. She was sleeping and having a really bad dream. And she said that it was like a dark presence was chasing her or was going to take over her. And so she woke herself up saying a prayer out loud, like praying out loud. And she said that when she woke up, she couldn't breathe and she felt like something was sitting on her chest. And that was the only instance that she or we ever felt like it was kind of more like evil, like a dark presence. And she just like kept trying to force out, and she finally just kept saying Jesus' name over and over and over, and that like calmed her down. But that was like the same thing that happened 2 times, and it was like they both couldn't breathe. This dark presence almost sitting on their chest, like suffocating them.
Whoa.
Well, I had a very similar experience happen to me as well with the pressure. But mine was I feel like mine might have been partially triggered by I went to an old hotel in Herman. It's called the White House Hotel. And it's the oldest building, the oldest hotel in our town.
Mhm.
And it has a lot of history. Like, it has a speakeasy in the basement for during, when was that? What
The early 1900s.
where out,
like
20s,
yeah, where like
30s.
Yeah,
alcohol was
Prohibition.
illegal.
Yeah.
Prohibition. Thank you. Could not think of
Mhm.
that.
You're good.
There was murders, there was suicides. So lots of like evil in this hotel, and we were there just chatting about like the different spiritual encounters that the owners had experienced there, which was also kind of crazy because they're all very religious as well. And anytime anybody would bring up ghosts, it was there's only one ghost, and that is the Holy Spirit. And that's what they would always say. If anybody said the word ghost in the White House Hotel, that was their response. So now to be on the on the other side where it's just us and we're in this dark hotel together talking about this like creature that several people have seen there, and me being my my sensitive self could just feel this thing. Like, I wanted to get out of that hotel. Like,
Mhm.
I didn't want to be there anymore. I didn't want it to sense me sensing him. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it now because like that was just kind of like when I knew that I could really just feel those things. And that night, same, I had the worst dream of my life. I won't get into details about it, but it involved an evil being, a demonic and evil entity in my dream, and it resulted in a death, to me waking up to that pressure, that inability to talk, that sleep paralysis where it's like pitch black around you, but you're awake and you can't move. And like I 100% felt in that moment that my dream was completely manipulated. And that some kind of poltergeist was in my room, was sitting on top of me, holding me down. I don't know. It was singing Amazing Grace that finally got me free. I don't know, always resorting back to that religious. I guess that's what comforted us growing up with it. So as an adult, that's what we resort to. But that was that was probably the scariest encounter that I had ever come into in my house, was that one.
Wow.
So I looked up the White House Hotel. Like, this is a pretty prominent building too.
Yeah.
Like, lots of beautiful photos and everything. I don't know. Normally, I'd be like, oh yeah, this is a cool place. I want to check it out. in the context of this conversation, I'm like, nah, these rooms look hella haunted. Like, I don't
No,
know.
it's so true. And there's a room called the suicide room because multiple suicides happened in it. Like people would drink lye soap and it would burn through them. Like
Honestly,
through the
that was the
bed.
majority
There's-
of the deaths in that room. So
and
it's
up
like
in the attic, someone hung themselves, and
coincidence.
there's tons of murders that have happened in the hotel. Another crazy thing, another reason why they think that there's a lot of spiritual activity is because what happened in the river? Did a barge like crash or a boat crashed or something in the river? And they ended up dragging all of the bodies into the White House Hotel and like covering them with white sheets, and the families would come through and identify the bodies. And
Oh
that
my
was one of
God.
the first, that it happened in the 1800s. It was one of the first things that happened with the hotel, but I can't remember now why there was all of these bodies in the river.
Yeah, I don't
But-
remember that.
Looking up the Herman population, which tends to trend, below 3,000, that's
Yep.
a lot of negative happenstance for one hotel. Like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. That also kind of makes you wonder. But yeah, not to derail from that
From
or
that,
anything,
yeah.
but like that nightmare experience, that's like pretty chilling. And
Yeah,
it's
and
it's
I
not like
don't-
you don't regularly like experience sleep paralysis or anything like that, right?
No, no. And like, I don't know how to correlate it to the White House at all.
Other than you
Maybe it
feel that
wasn't.
it
Maybe it
is.
was just a coincidence.
Yeah.
Maybe I was giving that energy to something evil, and that's why it allowed the evil in my home to take over me. I don't really know, but I was like, I never want to go back to that place again if that's what I left and that's what I got after being there. No. No.
Sure.
That's
I
the kind of haunting I
blame
don't
you.
want. I don't want the evil.
Right. Yeah.
I'll take the toys across the room,
Yeah.
the shower curtains opening and closing, but the evil.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
I do not blame you. Let's do 2 more stories from each of you, and then we'll probably call it a good interview because we're already almost at like an hour and a half of recording.
Dang, yeah.
So we've got plenty of stuff. I mean, you guys have a bunch of stuff to talk about, obviously. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Gosh, I mean, I feel like
Honestly.
we've touched on a lot of it. The one, Abby just kind of brought it up, but the one of the stories that I like to tell is I was sitting on the toilet one day and I was just on my phone, and then all of a sudden the shower curtain completely, and it was closed, completely opened, shink, right in front of me, just shink. And I froze, and I ended up calling Abby, and she was in the basement, and I was like, Abby, come up here right now, like this just happened. And like she came up, and the window wasn't open, like anything, and it just literally clear as day, the shower curtain just completely opened right in front of me. That was like, oh,
The
What?
worst thing that can
Yeah.
happen. Because,
Yeah.
you'd be 97% sure for one Mississippi that's it. The one time
Yeah.
you don't check the shower for a shadow,
No,
a shower murderer, then they get
Well,
you.
At least you were sitting on the toilet, so you didn't shit your pants, right? You
I
know?
know. I did my business real quick.
Because I would have dutied a little. Not gonna lie.
No, literally.
Oh man.
I'm trying
Okay.
to think if I have any other stories. There was one time where I was in that same upstairs bathroom. In fact, I got to the point where I really didn't want to ever use it. I just always felt watched in that bathroom.
Yeah.
But 2 different shower occasions. The first time I was washing my face, so I had bubbles on my eyes. And the water turned to boiling hot. I mean, hotter than the hottest setting you could turn it on. And so I get out of the water and I go to reach to try to like feel if the knob got like turned to hot. And it wasn't. It was exactly where I had left it, and the shower knob was exactly where it was. So I shut the water off completely, and then I just stood there for, gosh, I don't know, a minute with soap on my face, like, what just happened? And so I'm like, okay, let me try to turn the water back on. Turn the water back on, was able to finish my shower. And then another instance, that same thing happened, but I was washing my hair, so I could see. And I could see that the water had gone to like boiling hot, to then completely shut off, to then to come back on to hot again, and nothing is moving the nozzle. It was just that upstairs shower, like, fluctuating.
What?
And yeah, so I just eventually got to the point where I was like, I don't want to shower up here. Like, I don't feel like I'm alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't blame you. That's wild.
Either.
That's
So
yeah.
again, specifically tying experiences, which that one, I mean, you could construe as a little bit more malicious than some of the other stuff
Yeah.
on location. Yeah, that can be pretty serious, especially just in the sense that, you know, you're talking about an energy escalation if the water's coming out hotter than if you just, you know, turned it to super magma mode on the knob.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't know.
exactly.
that
It was
is
wild.
that is more of a concerning one.
Dang.
I think that's
Yeah.
all my stories, honestly.
Yeah, I think so too. I'll
That's
probably
good.
think of
And
one
yeah,
tomorrow
I'm
or
also
something.
like, you know,
Dang
it's one of those things where, you know, it's like if you lived there for years and then you get put on the spot, you know, we'll hang up and then you're like, wait a
Right.
second, there was that time the red door popped up in the living room and pulled me into the dark dimension and you know, I don't
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
whatever happened in that
No.
Conjuring
One thing
film.
I am kind of bummed about is that, like, we had all those recordings, and like, why didn't we prioritize making sure that, you know, we held on to that stuff? And
It was a different time with, like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
before cloud storage and stuff like
That's
that. And I'm sure everybody
true.
thought, hey, you know, it's on a floppy disk. I'll always have this if I need
it's
it.
somewhere,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
See how that works out. But you, at least you came to the table here with one very frightening recording already. So, like,
Yeah.
I fully believe the rest of them, too. Plus, you know, you have a corroborating group and everything.
Yeah. Okay. The last thing that I've got here, so we've covered all of our questions. You guys have shared a ton of stories. I do have some Ring camera footage from your mom of some orbs. So I'm just going to do a screen share so you guys can see it. You guys have probably already seen it. But your parents have a Ring camera set up on their fireplace mantle that just looks like into the living room area, and it points directly at like a recliner in the corner of the room. So I'm just going to do a screen share. Ethan, I don't think you've seen these.
I don't know that I have.
Okay. So this is the first one. So you just see it just fly up. This
That's
was
a
super
shiny
creepy because
one.
there's lightning that happens right here. Just kidding. That's a different video. But yeah, no, that's definitely not a bug. If it were a bug, you'd be able to see the wings like kind of flapping around, you know?
Yeah, no, it just looks like a circle.
Yeah. Okay, there's this one. So it comes up from the bottom of the chair and then flies up.
Oh, yeah.
And the
That was,
thing
like,
about these
drifting
videos
like a-
of the orbs is they're all coming and going at different directions, so that
Yeah.
like defies the possibility, or like it gets rid of the possibility of it being like dust with like airflow, because
Right.
airflow's gonna flow one way every time, but that one just came down and
Totally
up.
different direction.
Down and up. Yep. Okay,
Swooping.
so
And that was the one with the lightning on it.
that one was, yeah. So there's this one and then one more. So 2 more. So it came out of the bookshelf and then it kind of flew up. I listened to these with headphones on at like full volume because I wanted to see if I could hear anything, and I can't. But what I do know is because I have a Ring camera, it starts recording when it picks up motion. So it's really weird to me that this just randomly set off. Like if you look here in the old window she's got as a picture frame, the light is on the camera and it's reflecting off of it. So that's not an orb right there. But something set it off. And that's what's weird to me, because it's not always recording, if that makes sense. Yeah. Okay, so this one's the last one here.
Oh
So-
my gosh, it did the same thing.
Yeah, like
almost.
where it
So it
comes
did the
from
same
one
thing.
direction, then suddenly swoops up like with an acceleration.
Yeah, I'll play it again because it comes from the ceiling up here almost,
Yeah.
and then swoops up.
Wild. Yeah, and I remember my mom sending us, she would send them to us every time she would get them. And these would be like months apart. Like it would just be random nights that she would just
Yeah.
get, and it would be like there's someone in your living room, and then she would like get the notification.
Yeah, that last
But yeah, you're
one-
right. It is creepy that it like picked up movement when there's nothing in the room.
Yeah, I would
So
have to
that
go back
movement
and look
was
at
the-
dates. But that last one we watched,
Yeah,
it looks
it's-
like it's from like 2022.
So it's
And
yeah,
then
the capture
the first
was
one's from
triggered by
2020.
that motion.
Yeah.
And that last one especially, it had so much like front and back like axis, like it was clearly like kind of dipping in, moving towards it, and then scoops up right in front of the camera. So yeah, it makes it think it's not just like too close to the lens to focus, you know, because it's I'm sure we could extrapolate, you know, the math based on how big it is, but just take my word for it that it's creepy.
Okay, well, I think that wraps up our interview episode. I know it's bedtime. I'm tired too.
Absolutely.
So
But thank you both for taking the
Yeah.
time to kind of revisit
course.
some of this. I mean, it's you know, as much as it's prevalent in media, it's kind of rare to meet people who have actually, you know, survived a haunted house and still
Survived, I
carry
know.
the cherished memories along with them.
yeah,
I know. Thank
Yeah.
goodness one of us didn't get possessed or something.
As
yeah,
far
right.
as you
So
know.
much.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
thanks again.
Maybe
and
I'm still possessed to this day.
you got.
Maybe I'm not really Kaitlyn. Did you ever
You're
think
not-
that?
I hope you're just possessed of a good sense of humor, because you're creeping me the hell out, dude.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thanks again,
Well, thank
guys.
you so much for inviting
Yeah,
us. to
Yeah,
come.
this was a lot of fun. It was really fun to hear like more like the stories in more detail and
More detail,
more
yeah.
history on the house, because I had no idea. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
again, we'll have to at some point just have the discussion, you know, like run it back by the parents and be like, now that you know this is all going on, did anything else freaky
I
happen?
know, I
Too
know.
scary to
We
tell us. We
should.
can handle it now.
I know. Honestly, the next time we all get together, like I need to like, because I'm sure Bailey, you asked Adam, and that was really the only time he experienced anything.
Yeah. That was it. Just the footsteps, and he thought that like someone was in the house. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wild.
Yeah.
Whatever.
All right.
All right.
Well, I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for being on
Sounds
the-
good. Have a good
Thanks.
night,
Have a
y'all.
good
See you
night.
too.